What's up, you guys? Chet-Guthrie, the Drinking Poet here, coming to you all from the beautiful, remote area of Creston, North Carolina. And today, you guys, I am out here right beside a church. But there is something very special about this church that I'm about to tell you all about. But you guys, this is my last video, the last video of my birthday road trip series. And I'm ending it on a really good note. As you all have heard, and probably even seen in my earlier videos, all of this land right here, this was the land that my Papaw grew up in. My Papaw, Don G. McCoy, he passed away back in April of 2021. Sadly, his disease had finally gotten him. But one of the things that I remember about my grandfather is that he would often tell me all these stories that would come from this little town in Creston, North Carolina. Beautiful stories, stories of the strange. And today, you guys, with this vlog being the end of this road trip birthday series, I'm going to explore some of these spots. And it begins with this church right here. But before then, we'll just go ahead and we'll get to it. This is a special one, you guys. Now, there are two stories that kind of go along with this church and even the other churches in the area. And that goes back to my great-grandfather, Joseph McCoy. And Joseph McCoy, my great-granddad, he was a pastor. And since Creston, North Carolina was such a small area, they didn't have just one pastor to each church, but rather they had a pastor in the area that would travel to each church and pastor each Sunday. Well, this church right here, this was one of the churches that my great-granddad preached in. But the other story that is associated with this church in my family is one that's rather sad. You see, the year is 1962. My Papaw, Don G. McCoy, and my grandmother, my mamaw, Wanda Faye McCoy, have just gotten married. It is a cold December in New Jersey when they get the phone call that my Papaw's dad, my great-granddad, has passed away. Now, the story goes that it was an accident, but my late grandfather, my Papaw, he often believed that it may have been suicide because my great-granddad, my great-grandfather Joseph, he had a lot of medical problems in his back. And from what I can remember, I believe he was bound to a wheelchair. He couldn't really do anything that he wanted to do anymore. And well, either way, he lost his life. And the story within my family goes is that when they found out that my great-grandfather had died, they said, host a funeral in the nearest church around. And the Three Forks Baptist Church was the closest church. So, long story short, Three Forks Missionary Baptist Church, this is where my great-grandfather's funeral was held. This little church. And today, guys, we will be visiting the family cemetery, the McCoy Cemetery. And now, not far from this church, there is the other half of my Papaw's property. Now, this particular property, it has a far more fascinating and meaningful story behind it. So, we're gonna head out there now. I find it interesting that of all things that my family could use as a trough, they used a bathtub. And why I say this is all this property right here, this was my late great uncle DeForest's land. He's been dead about I would probably say about 2 years now. But if anything, you can always say the McCoys had a sense of humor. And behind this gate is the property that my Papaw purchased when he was in his teens. What had happened is he did a lot of work, a lot of saw work, cutting down trees. And with the money that he got, he purchased this land from my great-grandfather, and this became his own. And speaking of that, this gate right here, this was put in by my great-uncle DeForest to keep people from going up there and trashing the place. For a little while, he, according to my family, a lot of people would come up there and dump their trash, and he just kind of had enough of it. But anyway, guys, we're gonna go up in there and we're gonna see some of the sights. We won't go all the way in today just because it goes pretty far up, but we'll go far enough at least to tell my Papaw's story. Now, as we're walking, you will see this creek bed. And this creek right here, this creek is called Cabbage Creek. Now, you must be wondering why it has such an interesting name behind it. And well, the story behind that is none of us in the family know. In fact, probably some people in West Jefferson might know, but quite literally, we do not know why it was named Cabbage Creek. But my Papaw would often tell the story about why this creek had such a weird name behind it. And right across from it is an old shed. Now, I don't know if it was my Papaw that built this shed. Good possibility. It looks old enough. Or it may have actually come with the, whoa. I just sunk in the mud. But as I was saying, hopefully I don't sink in it again. I don't know if this shed came with the property when my Papaw first bought it, or if he built it by hand. And I just sunk again. I will never do that again, because I fell. But now, having said that, we're finally at this shed. I'm covered in mud. Now it's obvious this has fallen in on hard times. Looks like it hasn't seen much use in years, which makes me think that, yeah, more than likely my Papaw did build this shed. And it looks like it hasn't been used in a really long time. But like technically you can go inside of it a little bit of ways. And it's obvious this is pretty much done for, but I kind of wonder what this is. Kind of looks like a giant flag of sorts. Well, it's nice to see that I could have taken an easy route in, but I guess not. But it is what it is. So it looks like there's some type of dam, maybe, because looks like part of it is keeping Cabbage Creek dammed up a little bit. But to get back where we were talking about is here on this particular part of my Papaw's property. Many years ago, when he was in his teen years, he planted several seeds, several tree seeds, a few trees. And going up here onto the main property, now that we're walking, all these trees that you see, he planted. Yes, I said that right. He planted all these trees. And these trees have sprouted children of their own. Yes, when he was younger, all this was pretty much just cow pastures. But with all the sales that my papaw made from cutting down trees, he took that money and he started planting trees. One tree started with 2, then 3, then 4. Then what was a cow pasture became a forest. So I like to believe that this is the forest that one man by the name of Donald G. McCoy grew by hand, walking the same dirt path that we're walking right now, with a dream, never knowing how his life would pan out, how many grandchildren he would have, how many good lives he would influence. This property is his legacy. It's obvious these trees are very large. Now we're gonna head back down to the hill and we're going to check out some of my late Uncle DeForest's property. There's a lot of stories with those as well. Now, not far from the property, my papaw's other property, this barn right here, this barn actually has an interesting story behind it. You see, back in the 60s, my great-grandparents' house burned on the family property. The fire took everything from their house. Pictures of my papaw, family albums, pictures of my great-grandfather Joseph, my great-grandmother. It took everything. Well, as they were recouping and rebuilding their lives, my great-grandparents, they lived in this barn, well, which was a house at the time. It looks, well, it's obvious it looked like it, but nowadays it's just a barn. And as we're walking, I did notice this this pond right here. Now, I don't know if my great uncle built that, but it is a really nice reservoir that they have for the nearby properties around here, the water properties. It doesn't look like there's that much fish in it though. Now this house right here, this was my late great uncle's house, DeForest's. Now as you hear those dogs barking, you will notice those trees, like the one that's in that backyard and the one that's up the hill there. You see, my mom used to climb those trees when she was a little girl, and my family would visit the forest. Now, I don't know who owns the house now, but this was my great uncle's house. Now, down this lane right here, this is Highway 88, or State Highway 88. But I want to direct you all to this barn right here. Now, it is dilapidated, it is worn out, and of course you can see the new river right down there. Well, the story behind this barn is way back in the day, back in about the 40s, my papaw had fully dedicated his life to Christ. He got down in the river, and the preacher that was there at the time, he baptized him in the new river. Well, after everything was said and done, he had to walk up here and get changed. So in this little barn along the side of the road right beside the new river, this is where my papaw changed his clothes the day after he was baptized. Well, not day after, but the day he was baptized. Now it's obvious this is one day going to collapse, but I wanted to film it, well, in the years before it does. Now, in the Christian belief in baptizing, when you get baptized, all your sins are washed away. Now, I like to believe that this river right here, it has washed many people's sins away. But I'm glad that this particular river tells my Papaw's story. Now we are going to go to another property now. This one I know you all have seen several times, especially in the early days of my channel. But this is the family property. This is the family property that has been in my family for at least 4 generations. Now this property right here that we are walking down to right now, this property has been in my family's has been in my family for about 4 generations. It goes back to my Papaw, who purchased it back in the 50s, to my great-grandfather Joseph, who had it for about 30-40 years, and my great-great-grandfather, whom I'm actually sure I'm not actually sure what who his name was, but we're about to visit the family cemetery after this, so it's another long-awaited secret that I always wanted to know, who my great-great-grandfather was on my Papaw's side. Now this bridge right here, it was constructed sometime in the 70s by my my Papaw and his brothers. Now it's obvious it's fallen on hard times. My family has tried getting an estimate on what it would take to fix it, and from what I understand, I think it's just too much to deal with. As you all can see, the water has eroded the main entrance. I remember when I was a kid, this bridge led right to the property, and with a good-sized truck, you could easily cross this bridge. But unfortunately now, that's not the case. It's very sad. And out of all the buildings that was constructed by my Papaw, this is the one that is probably the most intact. This barn right here, my Papaw and my great-grandfather, they built when he was about 12 years old, which would have made this barn to be about 72 years old. It's still standing. I think it's made out of ash boards, I believe. But yeah, there's one story that I remember from my Papaw, was that as my great-grandfather and him were building this barn, my Papaw had claimed to my great-grandfather that his hammer was not working because the nails were not sticking through. But then my great-grandfather Joseph, he proved out to my Papaw, no, it's you that's doing it. The hammer works just fine. That was a story I remember very fondly. And here, looking at the base of the hill, the base of the property, this makes me think about my Papaw, or I should say my late grandfather's best friend. It was a border collie by the name of Jack. Now Jack, he was a smart dog. And as we're walking out here in this field, I just see my Papaw as a kid playing with good old Jack. Jack was a smart border collie. That's kind of why my mom got a border collie after hearing this story in the later years when my Papaw got sick. But y'all are probably wondering how my Papaw came to own this property. As you all remember at the beginning of the video, I talked about how my great-grandfather passed away. Well, when my great-grandfather passed away, my great-grandmother, she could not take care of my great-uncles, and she was kind of in a really bad spot. So she put up the property for auction, and as my late Papaw told me, Herbert, my great-uncle, told him, hey, bid on it, bid on it. Hey, Don, bid on it. Well, my Papaw, being who he was, he bid on it. And miraculously, he got the property for $600. And that's how he wound up with this property. Which brings me to this. We are going to check out the gravesite of the McCoys. My kin, my folks, to end this video. this cemetery, this family plot, it goes back these 4 generations. Just beyond this gate, there are the graves of my family. Those who came long before me, and those who will probably come after me. Now, I don't know if there's any relation to my family and the Osborns, but these are the gravestones of my family. And the first one that I want to see is my great-grandfather, Joe McCoy, born March 26, 1907, and he passed away March 8th, 1963, asleep in Jesus. And here's the grave of my great-grandmother, Goldie McCoy. Goldie, she was born December 3rd, 1905. She passed away January 9th, 1981. Again, asleep in Jesus, here up on this beautiful hill in the North Carolina mountains. Then here comes my great-great-grandfather, Thomas Lee McCoy. Born May 16th, 1970, passed away June 4th, 1951. How you doing, great-great-granddad? I think you would be proud of me. Looks like you lived a good 71 years. Maybe 81, I think it was 81. And how you doing, great-great-grandmother Ada McCoy? Born October 12th, 1877, passed away May 15th, 1940. And I don't know whose this one is, but love you, family. Don't know who did that, though. So I love the fact that these are the generations that came before me and those who will come after me. It's good to see the generations that came before. Now, as I was saying, DeForest, he passed away not long ago, about 4 years ago. I think he passed away from an aneurysm. And Mary L., his wife, she passed away in 2021. I remember that when that happened as well. Then you have DeForest's son, which would probably make him my second or third cousin. You know, he passed away in 2011. So anyway, guys, it's beautiful to know the story of those who came before me. Like I said, I don't know if there's any relation to the Osborns. I do know that this is the family plot, but some of these headstones, they date all the way back to the early 1900s. But anyway, guys, this was a fun vlog to me. Anyway, guys, this is a great way to close out this vlogging series, especially getting to see about 4 generations come and gone. Always remember your past, you guys. Always remember where you're going. Anyway, this is gonna be another vlog. Remember, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Always means a lot. Goes to show that y'all care. Now y'all want to see more awesome videos. So without further ado, you guys, vlog over.